I joined the engineers at the age of 16 as a boy soldier. I kind of naively thought that all we did was build bridges and blow things up. My first tour in Northern Ireland, to me at the time, it was just like the best thing ever. It was like a Christmas present. But the fun of being a soldier disappeared really quickly. For instance, I worked on a ship where the IRA had planted 6 bombs. A corporal and myself were climbing around an engine room. Your eyes are everywhere, your heart's racing. Every fibre of your body is absolutely tingling and switched on. And we heard a pop and a £5 Semtex device had actually detonated. If it had detonated properly, we'd have been vaporised. Subsequent tours, the more dangerous the job got, the more pressure mounted. It was all these little things that all culminated in a breaking point when I deployed to Bosnia. The roads are really treacherous out there in the mountain passes, and a group of young lads in a little Fiat Yugo spun off the road and rolled down this little ravine. So I crawled down to the car, and one of the guys had a broken arm, so I put a field dressing on, and whilst I was doing that, the guys surrounded me and they had AK-47s with them. The guy whose arm I was actually holding used his other arm and pulled a pistol and put it against my head. And in broken English, "Get back to England, we don't want you here." At that point I turned my back on these guys and had to crawl up this ravine. Although it was about 20 yards from the vehicle, it felt like 3,000 yards. I was fully expecting a round to enter the back of my head. At that point I was really trying to hold back tears. My sergeant major noticed that there was a massive change in me, and then I obviously told him about the incident. Without even a fleeting second, he said, "Do you want to go home?" And I just broke down and said, "Yes, I need to go home to my family." And so I was deployed back to the UK within about a week. When I left the army, I was a stranger to my wife. The slightest thing we'd end up fighting and arguing. Sometimes it got physical. My young son was then 7, and I think they genuinely feared Dad coming home from work. It played out as anger, but actually what it was to me was failure. Failure as a husband, failure as a dad. I was having panic attacks. I could go into a shopping centre and I was looking at every window, watching every person, making sure that objects didn't look out of place. And I would go into a patrol stance and I could actually still feel the chin strap of the helmet on the top of my head. The hypervigilance carries on at night time. I suppose in the early days of leaving the military I would go 10 or 11 days without sleep. Sometimes you don't want to go to sleep because you just don't want to have the recurring nightmares, where the outcome of that incident was different and I actually was shot in the back of the head. You're kind of in a fog. You don't hear any advice that people are giving you. You don't even hear the words, "I don't love you anymore and I'm going to leave you." You just don't hear it. There just wasn't anything about me that I liked anymore. I dressed up in my combat gear. I disappeared up a dark country lane, dug a trench and took a massive overdose and drunk 2 bottles of Southern Comfort. A couple found me unconscious in the trench and got me off to hospital. I spoke with a psychiatrist and he said, "Mate, you've got it big time. You're not a failure, you've got post-traumatic stress." That was the starting point of a long recovery process. The one therapy that worked for me was working at an equine therapy centre. When you get near a horse and you're in the moment and you've got that connection, every fibre in your body starts to relax. And it's like you've never had anything bad go on ever in the world, ever. It took me back to the 16-year-old before he joined the army. I've got that lust for life again and I'm holding it all together.